Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amir Rochalina.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland Harnham Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Harnham Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Kirsten Henly. Kirsten is the Chief Executive of Kingston First, our business improvement district, which is dedicated to making Kingston the best it can be for both businesses and visitors. What's unique about Kirsten is how her curiosity about local democracy has taken her around the country and led her to pursue a career in setting up and running business improvement districts. And be sure to listen to the end, where Kirsten shares with us her vision for the business community in Kingston as we start easing out of lockdown. So whether you're interested in knowing more about local democracy and bids, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. Welcome, Kirsten Henly, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Kirsten, I'm really excited about this conversation because given the unusual times that we're living through in lockdown, and of course your role as the Chief Executive of Kingston First, our local business improvement district, it's great to get a chance to hear from you about perhaps what the future might look like for businesses and visitors here in Kingston once we start moving into a more easement phase of this lockdown situation. But before we kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So, Kirsten, where did you grow up?
Well, first, Amir, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm really delighted to be here and looking forward to the conversation. So where did I grow up? So home for me is a place called Solihull, just outside of Birmingham in the Midlands. So I moved to London just over 3 years ago, about 3.5 years ago, and I've been in the Midlands. I've been up north at university, and now I find myself here in Kingston.
Awesome. And where did you go to uni and what did you study?
So I went up to Sheffield, the University of Sheffield, and I studied history and philosophy as an undergraduate. And then I went on to study a master's called political theory, which was kind of like the philosophy of politics. So I'm quite interested in sort of thinking about how things are the way they are, how we all live together as a society. I quite like some of those big thinking questions, and I was very lucky to be able to go to study subjects that I'm really interested in, find very fascinating, and very much enjoyed my time in Sheffield, actually.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And those subjects sound super interesting, again, especially given the relevancy of them at the moment. Could you tell us a little bit about your career journey before you joined Kingston First?
Yeah, well, I think the sort of thinking about how things work was what started me off getting into business improvement districts. But I think kind of before that, it was kind of local democracy and how places were run, basically. So after I left uni, I came back to Solihull and I managed to get a job working for the town centre manager then of Solihull, and so my hometown, and I was supporting her in her role. They were looking at that point in setting up a business improvement district, and I started to support them on that. I was working 2 or 3 jobs at the time. I was saving up to go travelling, and I was lucky enough to do that. Spent a few months away and came back, and my then my boss at that time had gone on to run a business improvement district in Birmingham city centre. And having come back from travels, not really sure what I wanted to do, but found working in town centres, working with the people that make town centres work, working with the businesses, the local politicians, I'd found that very interesting. So when I was offered the chance to go and work for her in Birmingham, I just took it. I just thought, what have I got to lose? This is kind of interesting. And kind of 10 years later, I'm still working in and for bids. So having spent a few years in Birmingham, I then went to Shrewsbury, which is a market town in Shropshire, also in the Midlands. Beautiful place, wonderful kind of historic market town. Set up a bid there, ran that for a few years, developed a team there, and sort of halfway through the term there, the opportunity came up in Kingston, and here I am. So I've kind of worked my way through 2 or 3 different locations in terms of places and how places run, but also seen the different sides of, large cities like Birmingham, but also small market towns like Shrewsbury. And for me, Kingston is a really fantastic mix of both the dynamics of those sorts of places.
Yeah, that's super fascinating, Kirsten. And there's quite a bit in that I want to sort of unpack with you in this conversation. And I want to start off, for the benefit of our listeners, with perhaps just exploring this term, business improvement district. So for those of us who aren't that familiar with it, what is Kingston First all about? And what is a business improvement district all about?
So Kingston First was actually the first business improvement district that was set up in the country.
Oh, wow.
We have been going for around 15 years or so now, and essentially what bids are ways of places, normally towns or city centres, and the organisations and businesses that operate in towns and city centres getting together, deciding what they want to see happen in their local environment to improve it for their employees, to improve it for their visitors, for local residents, ultimately to try and organise projects and services that make that place a better place to do business, a better place to run a business, a better place to attract customers and clients. Mm-hmm. And through a mechanism called a business improvement district, which is legislated for by government, get together, organise a business plan, ask for that business plan to be voted on by the local community. And if it's endorsed by businesses in a town or a city centre, it can then be set up and businesses are asked to pay into that pot to deliver projects and services over and above what are already provided by the local authority and police and public sector bodies to improve their area. So we're all about additionality. We're democratically accountable, so organisations have to vote us in. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that everybody puts into the pot, but everybody then benefits. And when I say everybody, we're a business organisation, so we're looking at supporting businesses and those operating in Kingston Town Centre to improve it in a way that they'd like to see happen.
That's really interesting.
So, most towns and cities now in the UK have got a bid. We all have to follow the same rules about how a bid is run. So we all have to be voted in, and we all have to run the company in a certain way. But every place is different. Every town, every city has got different needs, different desires, different projects and services that they want to see happen to improve their local place. So that's what's also really interesting about our sector. We have similarities, but every place is incredibly different and needs different support.
I bet. And to help our listeners perhaps visualise some of the work that Kingston First do, could you just give us some examples of what you guys have done in our city centre?
Yeah, so we are responsible for a whole suite of activities, actually. But some of the things that your listeners might have benefited from is the Christmas market and Christmas lights and all of the support that we do. Christmas. I can't believe I'm talking about Christmas in June, but there we go. I said it. I've landed that. We run support services for businesses, for example, a discount app. So we've got around 200 organisations that are supporting thousands of employees in the town centre on discounts. We provide free and discounted trade waste services for businesses. We install greenery in the town centre. We deep cleanse it as well, so over and above the local authorities' cleaning regime. We, a few times a year, go in and clean the streets. We run the marketplace in Kingston. We're responsible for some of the marketing of the town online with our In Kingston website and social media channels. Our themes for the coming term are essentially looking at how we can make streets and spaces attractive, enticing, ensure that people have a great experience in Kingston, how we market and promote the town, thinking about business support services, what can we do that help businesses either save money, save time, or help them get together to solve problems. And then we're also actually a really important conduit to represent the town and its needs. So a lot of what we find businesses want us to do is represent issues that matter to them, to the local authority, into the regional government, local government processes like the GLA, but also sector issues as well. So we do a lot of that sort of representing role, and because we're democratically elected, that's quite a powerful kind of weight that we have that enables us to be heard in perhaps ways that other organisations may not be able to.
It harnesses that whole concept of strength in numbers, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's something that I feel very passionately about. And the whole idea around Kingston First and any town centre, I believe, is that we're so much stronger if we work together. We're so much stronger if we find ways to organise ourselves collectively and represent the issues that matter to the town collectively. So we deal with around about, so we work with 750 odd businesses, and they've all got different kind of needs. They've all got different ambitions. They've all got different products and services to put out there. But they've all got one thing in common, in that they're all based in Kingston and they all want to see Kingston do well. And that's the thing that we really try and harness and find that common ground to deliver the things that we do. Yeah. And it's always a conversation, and we are always looking to try and find the best ways to deliver the things that businesses and organisations want us to.
Yeah, what I find fascinating about that, Kirsten, just listening to you is, so I spend quite a bit of time thinking of how to talk to people about financial planning, which is, of course, an intangible service. And it seems to me like you are cracking the same conundrum, the same nut, with talking about a town, talking about a spirit, a feeling that a town can give its visitors, can provide for the businesses. And that's something intangible. And I think, I for one think the marketing strategy that you guys put in place, the visual that you guys give Kingston with your marketing, is absolutely beautiful. So more power to you guys on that front, for sure. Kirsten, can I switch gears on you slightly? Given that, of course, you have your ears very closely to the ground when it comes to the feedback from local businesses. From your point of view, from where you're sitting, how has this coronavirus pandemic and lockdown situation affected our local business community? And perhaps, how do you think about the next steps on that?
It's been devastating. I think it's been catastrophic that over the past 2 or 3 months, the town centre has essentially been shut. People have not been able to come into work. Tills haven't been ringing. People are being furloughed because there isn't that business in the town centre. I think, like a lot of people, I've been, really moved actually by just how dramatic the change has been over the past 2 or 3 months. And we work very closely with people who have built their livelihoods up in Kingston over decades. We also work with national businesses who have got operations across the country. And I think, like in our personal lives, everybody's professional life has been affected. So it's been incredibly challenging for the town centre. It is actually difficult to find the words, to be honest.
I can see why.
And I think a lot of people kind of recognise that, and they're probably going through it in some form or other, unfortunately, with their own organisations. So we've done our absolute best to try and support businesses through that, providing information, trying to translate government guidance and advice. We've been trying to provide support services to businesses through webinars, by building local knowledge with suppliers and services that are able to, part their experience to members in the town centre. So we've been trying to find ways as best as we possibly can to support businesses going through this uncharted territory.
Yeah.
And I think, now we're here just a few days before the reopening of non-essential retail, and perhaps, there is now a glimmer of hope around some kind of, dare I say the word normal? I'm not sure if that's quite right, but some glimmer of hope of moving towards things starting to seem more like they were before. And walking around the town centre today, we can see people busying themselves in shop windows, and staff preparing for the 15th. And that is great to see, but we've got a long journey ahead of us, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah. And, there's something else that is woven in between the lines of what you said there, Kirsten, which is just how much I think all of us that are in lockdown just miss just going into Kingston Town Centre, either because, as you said, and I'll reinforce it, although it's the wrong time of the year to be talking about Christmas, either because there's something going on like the Christmas lights or the market, or just because, you need a bit of time and space for your own mental health. And a bit of window browsing and, having a bite to eat or something does everybody a world of good. And I think we've got this pent up energy where we're missing that, at least us fortunate enough to live close enough to the town centre where we can just pop in and benefit from the vibe that typically is there. So I'm sure that, the local residents are really looking forward to that in whatever shape or form, opening up again so they can start releasing some of this pent-up energy of having that mental space and just walking around the town centre.
Yeah, and there is this fantastic loyalty to Kingston and such a passionate both business community but also kind of residential community. And I think you're right. I think we all feel a pull to want to support Kingston, and we're so lucky that we've got, great leisure, hospitality, pubs, restaurants, places to go and eat, places to go and drink, places to go and shop. We've got, important educational institutions here. We've got great green spaces and history and heritage. Maybe I'm biased, I don't know, but I think we absolutely have it all. And that's what makes Kingston really special. There's something here for so many residents, and so many residents have a reason to come into Kingston. And I can't wait to start to see the town getting back to its normal self, albeit in a very safe, coordinated and considered way.
Kirsten, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
Oh, that is a good question. I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned, and I'm still learning how to do this really well, is to the fact that you only achieve anything by working and getting the best out of the people around you. And that's something I feel I'm really passionate about, I'm really interested in. And in my job, we have to work in partnership. Everything we do is about partnership. It's about partnership with the local authority. It's about partnership with our suppliers. It's about partnership with the businesses and business partnerships. And the team that drive all of the fantastic projects and services that we deliver, we are a partnership. And for me, that I think is the most important thing that I've learned, and actually it really drives me. So I think the idea that we always have to come to things and try and find a common ground, a way to find that shared ambition or find that shared vision or find that shared outcome, and take the meandering roads, and sometimes it's cul-de-sacs and sometimes it's motorways, and whatever way the journey takes you, but it's about going through that journey with people and compromising along the way, leading where you need to, but making sure that you've got those people around you to help you get things done, to help support you and to inspire you as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's absolutely huge. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
I am not very good with questions that are absolutes. So that for me, that's one of my kind of things, is that I think life is made up of lots and lots and lots of experiences that each and individually help shape you and make you better than you were yesterday, and that you learn from. So I'm I guess one of my philosophies is that there's sort of there probably are milestone moments, but there's lots and lots that I'm proud of for lots of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that recently I was really proud of is the resounding kind of endorsement that Kingston First got in our renewal ballot last summer. And we, at the time, it was one of the best sort of ballot results in the country. Over 60% of our members turned out to vote. Over 90% of them voted in favour of what we worked up with them as a proposal for the forthcoming year. I think what I'm really proud of is the fact that, that was it was a huge team effort. It was a team effort, both from a Kingston First perspective, but from a town perspective too. And it is a responsibility that businesses are putting their trust in us to help them get the most out of Kingston Town Centre, and they want to see it do well. And I do, take that responsibility quite seriously, and don't always get it right, but I'm pleased that businesses are saying that more often than not we do, and they gave us that endorsement to carry on for the next 5 years and into the 2020s.
That's awesome. And Kirsten, on that, when you look forward, what are some of the projects that you and Kingston First have in the pipeline?
Well, I think whatever we had in the pipeline is now a very long pipeline, unfortunately, just because, like a lot of businesses at the moment, our plans have just completely been thrown up in the air as we absolutely put 110% into supporting all of our sectors in the here and now. We need to be within the sort of the scope of what we've got to work with. We want to be there supporting businesses, and we're doing that at the moment through thinking about providing guidance to organisations as they reopen in the town centre, thinking about a town-wide social distancing campaign, continuing to provide information to businesses when government announces things, and trying to translate that into what it means for them. So I think that is our absolute priority at the moment. And once we get through that, I think we do really have to, just like a lot of organisations are going to have to think about, is how do we deliver against that mission that we've got? Our mission is all about providing leadership and support to make sure our members feel that we're delivering a Kingston Town Centre in the best way it can possibly be.
Yes.
So I think so. Sort of, I've gone the long way around of answering your question, which is, we've got a mission. We've got a mini mission now to support the town through the immediacy of this crisis, but that broader picture of how do we provide that leadership, how do we provide that support to make sure Kingston's the best it can be. I think that's our big thinking piece over the next few weeks, and that's something that our members are going to need to feed into us to make sure we're hearing them and supporting them in ways that we might not have been doing before. So I guess that's the sort of watch this space. But we have got a business plan. It is around key and clear strategic themes, and we'll be working within that framework to support and develop and help improve the town centre. Yeah, well, I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm going to say exciting times ahead. I think there are definitely opportunities for Kingston. Particularly I think as being an out of London town centre, we're accessible. I know that private vehicle and car walking and cycling, that's something we really want to be thinking about to ensure people can get in and out of the town centre. But we've got such a great quality of life here. We've got such fantastic town centre full of a breadth of businesses, and we want to make sure that we retain those businesses, but also perhaps start to grow and encourage new ones to come in, perhaps ones that, maybe coming out of central London and wanting to have a sort of outer London base, an outer London satellite office, etc., etc. So I'm an optimist like you. I hope and I think that there may be things that we can do differently and make the most of over the coming months and years.
That's really great. As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So Kirsten, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
I do a variety of things. So I like to exercise. So in lockdown, I've been missing the gym. I've been missing yoga classes, to be honest. I got into yoga sort of last year and found it absolutely fantastic. So exercise. I've gotten instead in lockdown, I've been trying to do the couch to 5K. So I've never been a great jogger, but I've been trying that, and cycling. And I do like traveling as well, which again is something that we've not been able to do during lockdown, but definitely I've got a bucket list. So when we're able to move around more freely again, I'll be looking forward to safely traveling and exploring the world.
Definitely with you on that one. Are there any books that you've recently read that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, I think at the moment I'm reading, so I haven't finished it yet, but I'm really enjoying a book called Shantaram by David Gregory Roberts. It's a really interesting, I believe it's semi-autobiographical book around a sort of prison convict on the run living in India, and I'm finding that really, really interesting. It's a really chunky book. But the sort of the way that he describes sort of life lessons and Indian culture, for me, that's really interesting. And I guess another sort of book I'd really recommend to listeners, so sort of a lifetime favourite of mine, is a book called Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom.
Okay.
Absolutely brilliant book. Very briefly, it's about a kind of mentor-mentee relationship. An old professor who sadly is dying meets up with an old student, and they share kind of their perspectives on life. And it's a really accessible book, but incredibly poignant. Leaves you thinking. So Tuesdays with Morrie is definitely one I'd recommend.
Well, I hadn't heard about it before, so I'll put it on my list. And for what it's worth, I'll second Shantaram, which I'm currently listening to on Audible, and I'm finding really fascinating. So no, that's awesome. Thanks for that. But finally, where can people go to find out more about you and Kingston First?
Well, we've have a look on our website, kingstonfirst.co.uk. If you're looking to find out more about the town, we promote that through our In Kingston channel. So check us out through our website. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, In Kingston UK. And I guess I'd invite people to contact me too. So through the website, you can see my email details, and I'm happy to kind of take on board any feedback, any thoughts, any observations about the town centre that, as we've discussed today, we all feel really passionately about and we all care about.
Oh, that's awesome. And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure I add these resources to the show notes. Kirsten, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.